the Amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing, individually and collectively, as it was established at birth.
Good evening, good evening. Happy Sunday. I'm Crystal L. Gunn, and welcome to another episode of Amazing Women Speak. So while you're getting settled in for the show, hit the share button and share Amazing Women Speak so your friends and followers can get in on this conversation that I am super excited about. So as you know, we celebrate Black women on every episode and will continue to do so. In April is Black Women's History Month, so the celebration definitely will continue. And we want to make sure that we send a huge congratulations to the South Carolina Gamecocks and Coach Dawn Staley, now a 3-time NCAA champion. Bravo and a job well done. But April is also Financial Literacy Month. And if you know me, then you know financial empowerment is what I do. So today we will be talking about finance and more specifically, deserving wealth. Redefining our financial relationships. So, Michele, thank you, ma'am, as always, for saying yes to Amazing Women Speak. Yes, thank you for sharing your amazing with the world, and thank you for having this conversation today. I'm so excited.
Yeah, right. So, good evening, and welcome to another amazing episode. And so, if you want to talk about your mind being on your money and your money being on your mind, you don't need to bring in a guest. You have someone who is so passionate about the intersection of understanding our relationship to money and how we can become better, be in a better position to have the wealth that we deserve and to obtain the wealth that we don't think we deserve. So no guests needed tonight. There's nobody coming in to have this conversation. It's a one-on-one. Let's dig deep. We invite you, all of our listeners from whatever platform you are on, to become a part of this conversation. Drop your questions, right? Like you're going to get what most folks have to pay for. And that's some insight into the thinking of Crystal Gunn and why she's so passionate about ensuring Black wealth becomes a staple in our communities. So drop your questions, your comments in the chat. We would love to make you a part of this conversation. And it's no different. It is still the fastest hour of our day. It's no different. We still have to launch deep right out of the gate because time is not going to be on our side. So let's go, Ms. Gunn. First question out of the gate is, why do we have a broke mentality?
Whoo! That's a very good one. So, okay. Before I even go down that road, I'm going to say to everybody, give yourself some grace.
Yeah, we'll get there. We're going to get to grace. Come on. But we got to talk about what's breaking us,
okay,
right? So then the path to it, we're going to allow some grace. Grace is required. We'll get there.
That's fine. So everybody has a financial relationship, right? And our financial relationship, 98, probably even 99% of the time, was not defined by us, and it does not serve us. So we walk around not even knowing why we operate the way that we do, right? So our financial relationship defined by what we received generationally, what we inherited, and I'm not talking about assets, what we were taught and were not taught growing up, what we saw, what we overheard growing up, all of the things that have happened in life, the failures, the disappointments, the not fitting in, what society says we're supposed to have, wear, drive, all of the things, social media, you got to wear this, you got to buy this, all of the things. And we've been targeted as a community, right, to be consumers. So again, all of these outside forces creating a financial relationship that again doesn't work in your behavior. So when we talk about the habits and the way that we think and what we do, it all stems from that. And until we go back and uncover and discover why we operate the way that we do, Doesn't matter how much money you make. I always say you can go into work tomorrow, they can give you $50,000 raise. The way that you operated prior to is the same way you're going to operate
Right.
after that. Yeah.
Right. Right. So there's some relearning, some unlearning
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
needs to happen if we're going to change the conversation, because there's nothing worse than walking around with $50,000 and still having a broke mentality, right?
I
You're just
literally have a client who, I don't know, maybe 3 sessions ago, and she said, now this is somebody who makes really, really good money. And she said, so we get to a point in my coaching where we add income to the budget and there's this number that's left over and we still need to assign that dollar amount a job, and she saw the amount and she was shook, right? And so going through that, we all the bills and all of the things were already paid for and we still have this money left over. And so as we started having that conversation, one of the things she said was, Crystal, working with you, she said, although I now have the titles and the income, I realize I've still been living in a scarcity mindset.
mm-hmm.
That's a huge breakthrough. And most people are walking around that same type of way. They don't realize it and they don't see the impact that it's having.
That's really interesting, right? Like this thing around scarcity. And what is the measuring stick for saying, right? Like you've got this great job, you've got money in the bank, however we're going to define that, right? And you still are living with this fear. How do we break that? How do we begin to change how we think about our relationship to money, our relationship to our finances, our assets, whatever the thing is
Mhm.
that we're measuring? How do we begin to change that thinking?
So we have this, and we put this value on, you know, going to the doctor for a checkup, right? We put this value on going to the dentist. We put a value on going to change um, the oil in our car and getting our car serviced. We don't have a we don't put value on ourselves for going to have that financial checkup.
Mm,
So people often, and I hear these things all the time. Oh, I make good money. Oh, my credit is this. Oh, but you're basing those beliefs and those thoughts again based on this relationship that wasn't defined by you and the knowledge that we don't have because we weren't taught any of this. Like you may have gotten something somewhere and something somewhere else, but the reality is everyone's trying to figure that thing out again based on this relationship that was defined externally. And you we got to be honest with ourselves, right? And first saying, I don't have the answers. And then seeking out unapologetically, not being embarrassed by it, um, understanding that, I always get a statistic that over 75% of the population is living paycheck to paycheck. So if it's you and 9 of your friends, 7.5 of y'all living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not even like you're alone in the thing.
right.
But until you start to have the conversation about it, until you start to really get real about it and say, like someone just said to me yesterday, hey, I make all of this money, but my stuff isn't where it needs to be. I need some help. And when it comes to that financial relationship, for some reason, we don't want to go get the help.
So let's talk mindset, right? Because we don't want to go get that help because we've reached a certain age, we're making a certain amount of money, and we recognize ourselves that something is not right. We're embarrassed, we're ashamed to go to someone,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and get the help that we need. So, how do we begin to break out of the barrier of the shame?
I think that's where we go and we give the grace. You got to give yourself the grace and knowing not even that you're gonna that you're having this conversation with a group of other people, but I think knowing that you deserve better should be the thing that kind of pushes you towards breaking out of the shame. So, do I want to continue to be shame with my financial relationship, or do I want to get the help and the answers that I need and just go ashamed anyway? Or
Hmm.
not, you know what I mean? It's like we at some point you have to stop suffering in silence and
Which we've
knowing
been socialized to do. We've been conditioned to do, right? Like that is so hard.
it is.
And to come to another human being, right? Like we even when we go to the doctor, we tell
Hmm.
half the truth about
Yeah,
the things that are wrong with us, knowing we need the help, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
this space is going to be no different.
Hmm.
And somehow we have to find the courage to ask the questions anyway. Like even before we get there, want to back up and say we all need someone to assist us, right? Having money is not enough to think that you know how to utilize every dollar to your benefit, right?
Hmm.
Like you can watch as much as Grey's Anatomy as you want. You still cannot diagnose what is wrong with you, right?
And do
Stay in
surgery.
your financial position.
Right.
Stop thinking that you can go this alone. There are folks, i.e., Crystal Gunn, that does this for a living, that helps us understand and flip over the rocks, right? Like that we don't know to flip over, that I didn't even know to flip over to make my money work differently for me.
Right.
And this is somebody, right? Like you said, makes a good income, um, is slightly above, however we're defining living paycheck to
Hmm.
paycheck, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Like still feeling like, okay, what is missing here? Couldn't figure that thing out on my own. And it's not about right, like black educated doing
All the things.
right, like all of the things. And yet there's somebody who is specializing
Hmm.
in the thing that I need the most, right? And so stubbing my toe, I recognize that something might be wrong with my toe, but the intricacies of what's happening underneath, it takes me
Hmm.
to go see a specialist.
Hmm.
This money game is no different.
Hmm.
So, what is that like when we walk in the door to see a financial strategist? And what are the questions? How do we come prepared? How do we begin to unpack this mystery of why my money isn't working for me the way that it could or should?
So it's a process. I always say we do a lot of financial therapy. The numbers part is relatively easy. It's the me holding a mirror to you and understand you're
Mm,
not going to get this with everybody. Like you're not going to get it with, there are other people out there that you are going to get it with, but you're not going to get it with everybody. And for me, I don't believe in cookie cutter, right? So the same strategy for Jack is going to be different for Jill is going to be different for Mary because we got all of these things that they have going on themselves, right? One of the questions that I ask all of my clients is, how do you want to live your life from this day forward? And overwhelmingly, the answer is, I never thought about that.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah,
Or some, some
yeah,
variation of that. Or if they can say anything, it's just this very generic, oh, I want to travel. Oh, I
right,
want to own investment property.
right.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's get down to what that really looks like. And so when I say we talk so much more than just the numbers, because it's a healing process. So there's an assignment that before our first session, everyone has to do. I call it a finance review, but they're reviewing, they have an assignment, they do a thing. And the very first question on that first session is, well, what did you discover? And they discover a lot because most people aren't even going back to see where and how they spend their money. So that's really what it is. And I've had people say, oh my God, I discover I go to whatever it is, Starbucks, 7-Eleven, whatever, way too much, or I spend too much money here. And I say that assignment is going to show you how you spend your money, where you spend your money, but it's also going to show you what you value over you. Because you can't tell me, oh no, I, want to be healthy and I want to, and you see, fast foods 4 times a week. You know what I mean? So do you really? Because where you spend your money says something different. You can't say to me, oh, I love my kids, and there's no life insurance, there's no savings going for them, there's no, you know what I mean? So it shows you, and it's an eye opener thing. And from there, it's like, okay, wow, I see. And so it's never for me to say, you spend too much money at 7-Eleven getting coffee every day. That's not for
Mm,
me to say. It's for you to determine. Because because I can tell you that, and you're not gonna listen to me
right,
because
right.
you know what I mean. We automatically going on the defensive.
So, Crystal, why is that your approach? Right? Like, why is it that this intersection between understanding finances, understanding our relationship to finances, and the mindset? Why is that your approach?
Because the more I talked to people, the more that I saw that was the problem.
Mm,
That what we haven't been taught, what we were taught, but the mindset and the conditioning that has happened. I know that our community specifically was tailored to be consumers, right? And then all of the other stuff that has played a part. And until we address that, we got nothing. And we're losing. So, okay, if we're making the money, but we're still in the same situation, making the money is not the problem. So what winds up being the problem? It's the actions, it's the thoughts, it's the habits, it's the deeds, it's the thing that's been passed down from generation to generation. It's what it's like when I when I stand in a workshop and it's a bunch of women and I say, raise your hand if you identify as an independent Black woman, and the hands go up with, and I'm like, that's not, it's not a badge of honor. But we've been conditioned, right,
right.
to think so. And then we've been conditioned to think that we're not worthy, that others that look like us, all of the things. And so there's so much that's wrapped up into that. We think that's not impacting our finances. So we can never, so, we do the red dot packing party and we give out for those that don't know, red dot packing party, we pack sanitary supplies, we give them out. There's this whole thing, period poverty. Oh, we're doing our part to eradicate period poverty. We can't eradicate period poverty if we don't address the poverty. Like, it just doesn't. It's just like, okay, well, wait, what are we really talking about here? So we can't get past affordable housing if we don't address the other issues. So yeah, so my approach is that healing, and I always say, when you redefine and you heal your financial relationship, it positively impacts every other area of your life, because the same things that are showing up that's negatively impacting your financial relationship are negatively impacted, it's showing up everywhere else.
Right.
So I lead with
Absolutely.
finances, other people lead with other things, but it
Right.
typically doesn't ever pull in finances.
Yeah, I really love that therapy concept, because certainly there's whatever's at the root is what's producing all of the things. And again, there's this intersection for all of it. How we think about physical health, how we think about our financial health, how we think about our mental health, all of that is intersecting. And we have to really begin to understand and find out what is at the root of that thing. So I want to talk a little bit about comparison,
Hmm.
right? In a social media age,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a lot of comparison, and it gets us in a lot of trouble.
For
Specifically,
sure.
tonight we're talking about finances. It can get us into financial trouble, right? Grandma used to talk about keeping up with the Joneses.
Absolutely.
Talk about the danger of comparison.
So during this conversation, you're going to hear me weave back and forth out of finance into just individuality, right? But it goes hand in hand. So I believe we are all here in this life for our next level of elevation, our individual. No two people have the same journey. So when you start to compare yourself to someone else, you do yourself a disservice, because they're on a different path than you. they're on a different level of elevation, and not that one level is higher or better than another. So it's not that, but they're in a different place in their journey. And so it might not be your time for this thing. And so, and here's the other reason why it's so crazy. You wind up comparing yourself to somebody who's worse off than you are, right? So it's like it's just madness all around. But your journey is specific to you. Nothing happens to you till the exact moment it's supposed to happen. Um, any and everything I believe that happens is supposed to happen, and everything that happens, again, I believe is working for your greater good, for your next level of elevation. And it's the journey. So when you start comparing yourself to someone else, you misstep in your journey. You miss out on the very things that you were supposed to do because you want to, oh, I need to be like, or I
Right.
need to be at the
Right.
same level as.
Yeah. You talked about, right, like paying attention to both the individual, who you are, and this conversation about finances. And right, like they absolutely will happen together when you're in your space. And you're also acknowledging the individuality of both of those things. And I remember you telling me, right, like after working really hard and trying to get above board, right, we have this either or mentality that we live with. And one of my hesitations was like, I like the things, right? Like I work really, really hard, and right, like the things are taken care of, and I like those things over there. And
Mhm.
I remember staying away from this conversation with you, who's in my life all the time and has been for 30 plus years, because I didn't want to hear that part, because I thought
Mhm.
that that was a part of the conversation. And when you, like the freedom that came when you said to me, I'm not going to tell you to not buy the things, I was like, oh, let's go.
Right.
Okay, like I'm in this then. I'm in this, right? It was really about, you talked about, and here, like listeners, this is where I'm telling you about to get a free gift. The thing that you talked about is, but how does every dollar serve you? Does it have a job? What's its purpose? Talk to us about that.
So, so often, people will say, oh, no, I have a budget. I'm like, okay, let me see it. And it's tracking the expenses. So rent, mortgage, car payment, insurance, cell phone bill, all of the things that if we weren't in this paperless society, you get a paper bill in the mail, right? So that money, those dollars have a job. They have that job. It's all the rest of the money that you haven't assigned a job. And that's where we start to lose because we're intentional with the bills. We're not intentional with that other money. So every dollar you earn should have a job. And so part of when I'm working, so throughout most of the coaching, we're building what I call an efficient and effective budget, which is really different than just a regular budget. But, and they're going to be line item allocations that people don't have. And the things, shopping needs to be a line item allocation, travel needs to be a line allocation. What's the things? And so when I say, how do you want to live the rest of your life? In order to create an efficient and effective budget, you got to know that so that we can be intentional and put money there so that it's there. So I say, whatever you spend your money on, I don't care if it's weed, gambling, drugs, whatever, you still need to set it
Let's not
aside.
do those things, but I hear
Right.
you. Now we have to have another guest on here to fix all of that. But anyway,
So when you and even miscellaneous, right? So it winds up you being really, really intentional with your money. And that way you get to live the life that you desire and deserve. And I always say that you desire and that you deserve because people's desire is always less than they deserve. I
mm-hmm.
just want to make enough money
Correct.
to,
That,
right?
right.
Yeah. And I'm
Right.
like, no, prosperity is your birthright. It's more to life than just paying these bills. and then dying. But when we're into now, you may say, you know what? I want to travel out of the country every quarter. Okay. Well, today you might not be able to do that, right? Because what's happening today in your financial life says no. However, we can set that up. So this year it might be you get to travel out of the country once this year, once out of the state, and them other two vacations gonna be in state, right? Well, because now we're planning and we got line item allocations. We're assigning money to a travel account. Next year it's twice a year. You know what I mean? And so you then get to move into actually living the life again that you want, as opposed to the one that you get after paying bills.
So another thing that you taught me, and really thinking about, right, like the stuff, junk, and things in life. I think about it very differently now. Where before, if I wanted a bag that cost a lot of money, right, I would go buy the bag and then figure all of the rest of it out, right? And then the relearning was, I'm not telling you you can't have the bag.
Correct.
But you need to plan for it while you're still doing all of these things and making sure that the dollar that you assign to that bag is going to that, and you're not pulling from something else in order to be able to do that. One of the things that I discovered, because sometimes the cost of the bag is significant, by the time I got even close, I no longer even wanted it.
Right.
Right. And so that's the other thing that it taught me was patience with my money around the junk stuff and things that I love. Right. Like I love. And there's no longer a shame in acknowledging that. Right. Because we have this either or mentality. And so many times in social media, I'm seeing, right, like the memes of the person choosing the jewelry over property or something, right? Like, and Black folks, we go all in on that. And I'm of the mindset, right? Like we can have both. I'm entitled to both. The God I serve says I can have both. Let's stop with this either or mentality. It's about the planning. Like you said, like we're selling ourselves short when we think that way. When it's effective planning that allows me to have both of those things. And so I'm really, really grateful for that teaching. And some of it hasn't even been direct, right? Like it's making sure that I'm in the spaces for those conversations. And I'm all about, right, like sprinkle on me all day long. I could be in the room and absorb that. And so who are you surrounding yourself with that's going to allow you to elevate from where you currently are? And so I'm really grateful to the gift that you give. I have direct access, and yet you still share that broadly with others. For most folks, there's a cost for that. And your commitment to community growth, individual growth of Black women, and creating space for us all to be amazing. You continue to sprinkle all of us. I end the show every week talking about the number of people you bless that have not physically been in a room with you because of the assignment that God has put on your life, that you remain obedient to, that she got that excited, right? Like it's financial literacy month. Let's have this conversation. I want to be able to gift the women with this knowledge about what you deserve. We really are deserving of some financial freedoms. And it may not look like, right, what you want it to today, but I really love you talking about that planning piece of it. How much of this, which was another place I had to turn for redirection, does credit impact this journey?
So that's a great question, because we have been, again, here's this word, we have been conditioned to stay in this constant debt cycle, right? So I've had people say, oh no, every however many years, every 4 or 5 years, every such and such, I have to have a new car. Okay, why? And I'm not saying that every 4 or 5 years you should not, if that's what you want. But tell me why. What's the purpose? Because again, it goes back to self. Who's the new car for? If you said, you know, I'm single. I don't have anybody, I don't, but there's mechanics, but okay. And so I just need to make sure that I don't have any issues. So the new car, whatever the justification is, that's fine if that's what you want. But I always want people to go back and ask themselves why, the deeper question of why. So, because when we stay in this constant debt cycle, we then have to stay in this constant earning revenue cycle. We then also stay
Mm,
in this, I have to pay these things off instead of using this money here for something else. And so, okay, why do you want the new car again, you can have the thing, but why? Is it transportation? Is it, I want to roll up and people see, like, and there's a lot
I
of
get that. Yeah,
honest.
I get that. Right. Yeah. Right. Like that self evaluation, that mirror that you talked about at the beginning, having to put up to yourself. And if you ask yourself that and answer honestly, it may shift your
Mhm.
choices. Right. Like, yeah, back to the
So
bag, back to the
so someone
cars.
someone says, okay, I want to travel I want to be a world traveler. I want to travel out of the country every, quarter. Okay, you got X amount of dollars. Would you rather that four, five, I don't know, six, seven, eight right now on regular cars, car notes that people are getting? Is that more important or seeing the world more important? Because sometimes in the moment, it is either or, so that you then can get to both and.
I hear that.
Right. So why? And again, never saying that you can't have the thing. And then we weren't we were never taught how to use credit effectively. Right. So credit, when you look at the just the pure definition, it's you using credit to get a thing today and then paying for it over time.
So in the chat, Renee is saying, right, like that why statement is resonating with her, right? Like she was thinking about getting a new car, and that why, right, like it's going to give her pause, and she may, like you said, still decide on getting the new car, and the why may have her thinking about, right, like not now, not at all. I want to do something different. Um, yeah, I absolutely can appreciate your teaching in that way, because to achieve financial freedom doesn't mean that you stop enjoying life.
Achieving financial freedom means you are enjoying life.
Right, but it's that dang old road getting there, Crystal, right? Like that's the hard part.
So the beauty of it is, right? We have the ability to then, like, teach those that are behind us. Because you hear people, when I said your relationship defined by what you inherited generationally. And again, not assets, not typically assets, especially a lot in our community. So not assets, so it's the thoughts, it's the habits, it's the things, right? There's people out there who right now bank at, even if the bank has been bought and there's a different name, right? They bank at the same bank that their parents banked at. They don't know why. It might not even serve them, but it's the thing that they did because their parents did. Again, somebody else defining your financial relationship. So when we talk about, and this was the buzzword, oh, breaking generational curses, it's not just saying, okay, I'm going to pass down the assets. If I pass down the assets, I also have to be able to teach them how to use it effectively. But if I
Mm,
haven't healed my thing that has kept my financial relationship crazy, then aren't I just passing that? You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah.
somewhere we got to say, but here's the other thing, where that same client who said she'd been living in scarcity mindset also said, Crystal, I've never done a budget like this before. I said, what do you mean? She said, this budget allows and encourages me to live life. Yes,
Right.
because that's what we're supposed to do. So
And we thought we were living.
we thought we were living, and you were. But for some, it was living at a cost. Like you said, okay, yeah, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go on vacation and I'm gonna fix whatever happens when I have another young client who just did the same thing, went on vacation. She was going with a couple of her girlfriends, and that's a whole nother crazy story. And she wound up spending way more than she anticipated spending. So now, a month or so later, she's talking about going out of town again for, cousins, I don't know, her niece and nephew's something birthday party. And she says, "You're gonna tell me not to go." I said, "I'm not gonna tell you not to go. That decision is yours." I said, "And we're gonna fix the things when you get back." I just want us to not have to fix the things when we get back. Let's set up the plan, the strategy on the front end so that when you go, you don't have to worry about fixing the things when you get back.
Yeah, it's the not no, it's just not now. So that the things you have to fix on the back end aren't costing you something that you can't afford to pay, right? Like having to work overtime to cover the gap. So now you're giving
Oh,
up time with your children, with the whatever, right? Like all of those things. It's this domino effect where you think all of these things are happening in isolation and they're the connective tissue to
oh my
all
God.
of them. If you don't slow down, if you don't ask the why, if you don't do the evaluation, it circles back to this thing, right, about keeping up with the Joneses, trying to extend ourselves beyond our means for the purpose of, right? And so,
The
yeah,
perfect. And so going back to the credit thing, right? You just said something about the overtime. I had a client, had two young sons, and she was now divorced, but was working, and she had all of these store credit cards. And if you know me, you know I'm not a fan of store credit cards. She had all these store credit cards, and they were maxed out. She had, I don't know, about $16,000 worth of credit card debt. And so in one conversation, she said, "Oh, this credit card debt, I got to get rid of this credit card debt. I have knots in my stomach about this credit card debt," right? And then I don't know, subsequent conversations after that, we're talking about the credit card debt and the shopping and all of the things, right? And I said, "Well, why? Tell me why. Why do you shop like that?" And she says, "Oh, I get to go and I get to put the dress on and I get to feel really pretty and I feel really good in that moment," right? That's that retail therapy. That's not really therapy that they talk
right.
about.
Yeah, yeah,
And I said, "Okay." I said, "But you also said you had knots in your stomach about that credit card debt." I said, "Now let's just take it a step further. You said," she said, "I'm going to pick up shifts on the weekend so that I can pay the credit card debt off." And so I said, "So now your young children have to be with somebody else on
right.
the weekend while you're picking up shifts. And guess what? You can't wear them pretty dresses to your job when you picking up them extra shifts to pay down the credit card debt that you used to buy them pretty dresses." So it goes back to what's the thing that's important. And I'm not saying don't buy the pretty dresses. I'm saying don't buy the pretty dresses to the extent that it is harming your life, your well being, and your health. Because it's also like stress month or something this month. And so we know people are out there stressing over their finances. Don't continue to do the thing that puts you in a worse situation.
So, Crystal, two things. One, I want to know, is that ever a strategy, right? Like for 6 months, I'm going to work this extra job, da 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 da. Is that ever a strategy that you would recommend? And two, you talked about, I don't like store credit cards. I need you to back up and tell the folks why that is.
Okay, so don't let me
Take your
forget.
pick, whichever one you want to go with.
Yeah, don't let me forget B. Let me go back to A, but I need you to
Okay.
tell me 6 months. Yes, is working. It is working the job for 6 months, working the overtime. It's absolutely a strategy, but it has to be a strategy. And what I mean by that is, I tell a lot of stories because I have a lot of examples. Talking to a woman who had recently been talking to her, I don't know, their benefits person at the job to see when she could retire or whatever. But she had also said that she had started driving like Uber and Lyft, right? So she's going through and she's saying all of this stuff. And I said, I got to take a step back. I said, you said that you're driving Uber and Lyft. Are you driving that and you're taking that money to then pay off debt, set aside for retirement? Or are you driving Uber and Lyft because you need that to pay the bills? And she said, because I needed to pay the bills. Right? So where's the strategy? So yes, if we now have assigned and created an efficient and effective budget, and we realize you need to work some extra time to pay off some debt, to do whatever the things are, then yes, but you got to go into it knowing that I'm going to be intentional with this money and I'm going to use the money for this and not to go out and buy more things.
Right.
That then keep you working the extra job longer.
The danger.
Yeah.
For sure.
So the store credit cards, right? First of all, you can get whatever you want anywhere with Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover, right? So when you go into a store and you get to the checkout and they say, hey, would you like to save 10% on your purchase today if you apply for a credit card, right? Well, they know that if you apply for a credit card and you get the credit card, now that $250 that you got that day is going to hit that credit card, and most people are not going to pay it off. So now you got the interest, and they're going to make far more in the interest that you're going to pay because they're going to send that statement that says it's a $27 minimum payment, right? You're going to pay that minimum payment, or, oh, I'm going to pay $40. You're going to pay more interest, and you're going to, that $250 that you spent in the store that day winds up being $400 or $500 by the time you pay it off. And so the same way that I say, every dollar you earn should have a job, every credit card you have should have a job as well.
So yeah, right, like
all the things.
All the things. And the folks at the counter, right, like they're good at pulling you in, right?
They've been trained.
Yeah, right. Like, because it even goes one step further now, Chris. They're not only saying, do you want to save 10%? They're also saying, you can just pay it off immediately, right? And so sometimes we even fall for that. We don't even get to the part where, like, now we're taking the ding on our credit for a 10% discount in that moment that ends up costing you more in many, many different ways, right? Like, they're savvy. And so what we have to do as consumers is become savvy and knowledgeable as well. And you cannot do that without a crystal gun in your life. I'm just saying, right? So you really do need someone who is helping you advocate for yourself in these many ways. And again, what I love about your approach is that you're also thinking about the heart of who we are as Black women, especially in this space, that also allows us to think about how do we develop a different relationship without blame or shame around our money. And that's the part that is so hard to overcome. The blame and shame of the choices that we've made. We all have a story, right? We all have things we could have done differently, and pretending that we don't isn't going to change our outcome. We have to be able to say it. We have to be able to name it. We have to be able to come up with a strategy. And if we could do it, you say this all the time, if we could do it on our own, we would have already done it.
People will say, well, let me fix some stuff before I come see you. No, don't do the thing.
He's my best friend, and I took that strategy, right? Like,
don't fix the stuff. And the reason that I say it isn't because I want to see the mess, if you will. It's because sometimes, because it's not your lane, you're going to do things that are not going to be beneficial, right? And I'll just go back to the mortgage side. I would have people say, okay, well, I'm going to pay this credit card off. I'm like, I don't need you to pay the credit card off. You've been carrying the balance all this long. Let me tell you how much to pay on it to to get the balance down so that your score can go up. Like there's strategy behind it. And here's the other thing. I don't care what it is. And you know this from you definitely can relate to this from the physical trainer standpoint, right? Do you have a goal? You want to do a thing, you know you need to do the thing. You don't always know how to do the thing because you're standing in the middle of it. If it's your business, you're standing in the middle of it. What I have the ability to do is see from the outside in. Then I can come in and I can help you create a strategy to guide you to where you need to be. Plus, my nerd is about to come out. People are living in survival mode. And you've heard me say this before. Survival mode, just like that whole flight or fight, the amygdala sounds the alarm, cuts off access to the cortex part of your brain, which is where creativity and rational thought are housed. If you're living in survival mode, you can't see your way out of it anyway because you don't have access to the very part of your brain to help you create the strategy that you need to get out of it.
Wow. Wow.
So it's so much to the thing. So I'm like, you can't. It is my prayer. And just like in the last 2 weeks, the calls that I have gotten and the 2 or 3 times people have called and said, okay, Crystal Gunn, I am ready because I make too much money for, again, ... right? And I know it's not going to happen until you get ready, but don't wait until you need it. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, somebody called me and they needed, they had a car and got in a car accident. Car is now totaled. They need to buy a new car and their credit is not where they need. Okay, but you know me. You know this is what I do. Why you go to
We always think we have more time to get this thing together until we don't have more time, right? So
I know, fastest hour of the day.
Fastest hour, right? Like, so let's share a few gifts with the folks, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm always willing to use myself as an example. One, because I get answers, mm-hmm. But two, to acknowledge, right, that it wasn't always great, right? And I couldn't figure out what the first step to take was, right? And so there is, right, like, am I trying to pay down my credit? What do I need to increase my score? Do I need more money in the bank? Do I put money over here, right? Like there's so many moving pieces that we don't know that first step to take. And I did not know that first step to take. And when I think about as when I was a young single mother, just that survival mode piece of it, right? Like there was so much robbing Peter to pay Paul just to be able to ensure, right? Like just even the basic needs, and then wanting, again, paying attention to what the Joneses were doing, trying to make sure that the girls had a little bit more because of, right? Like doing all of that thing. What are some of the early steps? What are some of the early thoughts folks should be having that are thinking about, right? Like, yeah, I really do. Like Renee has been blowing the chat up. Renee has been blowing the chat up, right? Like she's acknowledging that this conversation is resonating with her. Like I need to rethink some things, or here are the things that I've done. Regardless to where you are in your journey, you got a lot of money, you got a little bit of money, your credit is decent, your credit is poor, whatever it is. What are some of the early things I should be thinking about or should be doing to get me going?
Yeah, so this might seem a little, I don't know, not what people are expecting. Go back and think about how you want to live the rest of your life. What are the things that are really important to you? Because that's the driving force. That's going to be the thing that shifts you into saying, oh God, I got to do something different. Oh God, I got to want something different. But you got to know what you got to know what you want first. And then okay, so how do you want to live the rest of your life? And then look at savings, investment, all of that. And look at your credit scores, the amount of outstanding credit you have. Does all of that, where it is today, get you where you want and how you want to live the rest of your life. And if it doesn't, then call me. Like, I don't know. And listen, I say it all the time. If not me, somebody else. Now, a lot of what I give, you're not gonna get from somebody else. You may find it because, again, for me, I always say the numbers are easy. The numbers, setting up a budget is easy. It's the mindset and everything that goes around it. So those first steps is really and truly, how do you want to live the rest of your life? And when you look at, I just talked to somebody else and they were like, yeah, I don't even look at my credit anymore. Okay, look at it. When you look at it, is it where you want it to be? Is your savings account, is your investment account, is all of that where you want it to be? And if it's not, then you got to decide to do something else right after you give yourself some grace. So if I say right now, it's not your fault that you are where you are. But if you know me, if you have an opportunity to come to a free workshop, listen, we put all of this, again, go to college, get a degree. We got more degree and smart people, and we got $1.8 trillion collectively in the US in credit card debt. I'm never beating you up, but I'm saying you got to decide. Everything starts with self. Do you want your relationship with money and credit and finance and all of that to look the same in 6 months? If not, you got to make a decision. I got a good friend. Well, God rest his soul. But Joe Coleman used to say, "Are you mad yet?" And
Right.
MAD was an acronym for make a decision.
Right.
So when you figure out and start to write how you want to live the rest of your life, and it's a working document because it's going to change, and you look at your financial situation and you say, this is not what I want. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Make a decision. Like, don't watch another video. Make a decision and then go talk. And one of the things I always tell my clients, because I know that it's a sensitive topic, I say, listen, no one will ever know you are a client of mine unless you tell them yourself. Because I get it, right? But listen, y'all, we losing.
Right. Like, let's pull back the shame of all of the things that we hide in that it's keeping us from elevating. Shame around therapy in the Black community, shame around our financial situations in the community, shame around our health. And all of these things, individually and collectively, are killing us
Mm-hmm.
under the guise of shame and guilt, when we need to free ourselves. God didn't intend any of us to live in this kind of bondage. And again, the gift that you will get from Crystal is she's paying attention to you, the human being, and your finances. Like, who's caring about the heart of who you are and the way that you see yourself in this world? There are not many folks that do the work that she does that. Right? Like, she could frame this thing and go out here and make millions on our backs because we don't know any better. But what's most important to her first is the wholeness of the Black woman. And she wants each and every one of us to obtain our PhD in financial literacy. And it starts with going to see her. Everybody, I don't care what it is that you do, you need a coach. I train personal training, and I am required to have a coach if I'm going to be better. The work that I do full time around equity, I have a coach. It is going to require us to understand that it's bigger than who we are, and that somebody else is getting their expertise in the thing, and we've got to elevate up. So let's put away the shame. Let's grab a hold of some grace, and let's get a hold of Crystal Gunn. How can folks find you?
crystalgunn.com. Real easy. It's crystalgunn.com. I also have, if you go to shopcrystalgunn.com, I also have, because I know sometimes people aren't ready. There are ebooks, if you will, that you can download to start answering some questions about self, because it's really, really important that we start to understand why we operate the way that we operate. So yeah, you can find me on all of the social media things, and even through locally and online, even through my nonprofit, United Community Solutions. I do a ton of free workshops. Everybody should be coming to the workshops again and again and again. Because if you came to a credit workshop once, you ain't get all the stuff.
Right.
Come again.
Right.
Right. Or you then did the stuff, because if you know me, you always gonna have homework. You did the stuff, now you need some more stuff to do. Come back. We have to say, you know what? I want to take charge of my finances. I want to change my life. But you got to step out there and you do the thing. So yeah, crystalgunn.com.
So, right, like 7:55, and again, Renee Michele is just, so she said something in the chat that I need you to touch on. Financial legacy, right? Like she says, I want to win in money and leave a financial legacy. Talk to us about financial legacy as we begin to wrap this thing up.
So you're going to live a financial legacy. You have to decide what you want that financial legacy to look like, right? Because either way, you're going to leave one. So are you teaching your children and the generations that follow you to do the same thing that you're doing? So perfect example of that, had a client, credit cards are maxed out, and for the second or third time, several sessions later, she's talking about she was trying to plan a family trip, and her mother said, I can't go. Oh, my credit cards are maxed out. And I said, oh, hold on. Your mom's credit cards are maxed out? And she was like, yeah, they're always maxed out. They've always been maxed out. She always says. And I said, your credit cards are maxed out for the second time. So her mom has left a financial legacy, not one that she intended to leave, not the one that she thought about leaving, but she left it. So we're gonna leave one any kind of way. But if you care about those that are coming up behind you, you want to make sure that the financial legacy that you leave is positive. And in order to be able to do that, you can't listen. You can't lead, you can't teach something that you don't know.
Right.
So in order to leave a positive financial legacy, you have to get your financial house in order, basically. And then you get, and so there's the story, the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, and regardless of what you feel about either of them. So you hear the Rockefellers still have all of this money, their legacy is gone, it's generational wealth, and it's been passed down. The Vanderbilts, not so much, because the Vanderbilts didn't teach the following generations what to do in order to make sure that this thing continues. So both of them left financial legacies. One was good, it's still going strong, and one you don't even hear about anymore, because after however many generations it was, there was no more money.
Yeah, right. Like we've all have seen the series about I won the lottery. And that, right, like these folks are walking around homeless. If you do not know how to manage your money, more money is not going to solve that problem.
It's not going to solve the problem.
What a conversation. What a way to kick off the month of April in financial literacy with one of the dopest women on the planet who is caring about your soul and your bank account. Crystal, thank you so much for sharing these nuggets. The chat has been on fire. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Net. Thank you, Phyllis. Phyllis said this is the most important financial conversation she has been a part of ever. You are truly a gift, Crystal. And I'm so very thankful that not only do I get to call you best friend, but I get to share this platform with you every single week. And thank you for being the person that we had a chance to have this conversation with tonight, because I don't know anybody who cares as much about those both of those pieces.
Yeah.
Who I am and how my money can work for me. So very grateful. Thank you all again for joining us. Fantastic conversation. Crystal, I turn this conversation back over to you.
This, I don't know. I'm so crazy passionate about this piece, because I just understand that, going back to the article that said, if the current financial trend continues by the year 2053, Blacks will have zero wealth. Like, that can't happen, not on my watch. Right. And so I'm just saying, if not with me, with somebody, but you got to get into the game, y'all. We are losing, and we are losing big time. And I literally was having conversations with somebody earlier, and they talked about their space and we're doing fine because, and I was like, dude, that's your reality. Like, because of where you are. And it's just so much that it's so much work that we have to do. Plug in. Like, you have to face it and then forgive it in order to fix it.
Say that again.
You gotta face it and then you have to forgive it in order to fix it. What happened yesterday happened yesterday. What are you gonna do today? How do you want to live the rest of your life? And then call me. Like, I think I did a post on social media and was like, imagine having my phone number. Like, imagine having my phone number. Imagine knowing me on social media or just, seeing me and you haven't come to a class or you haven't signed up for. I even said, okay, get your girlfriends together and let's just do 2 hours where y'all ask me whatever you want to ask me. But stop just sitting in the same place and thinking that something is going to change.
She's not kidding. I'm telling you, she's not kidding. She's almost giving the house away for free out of her commitment to wanting us to be better. So if you joined us late, please, please, please go back and watch this. It will change your way of thinking. It will cause you to pause, if nothing else, and do some evaluation. There is a place for you to go, and that really is elevation. You versus you in this financial gain, but it's going to take you a crystal gun. Go get you a crystal gun. What God has done is expanded her ability. She's taking care of her, and he's increasing her territory to be able to help more and more of us. When she said, what a shame if you are denying yourself the gift that she is offering for free.
It ain't always free, but go ahead.
Some of these resources are out there. Like you said, some of these resources are out there. We absolutely understand you two are providing for, right? But some of these resources, like shame on us that we
I do Monday through
Monday
through Thursday. You go to YouTube and Google me. I mean, not Google me. Find me on YouTube. I do a training for free Monday through Thursday at 12:00. Go back and watch the replays. Like, it's just it's out there.
Watch this one over and over again.
How about that?
Right? Because there's nuggets in here that'll get you thinking. And by the time you've watched it, if not once, twice, you'll be calling her anyway.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I can talk about this forever. So we are going to call this a night. Please find Amazing Women Speak on all of the platforms: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Spotify. So whatever your favorite platform, please do me a favor and subscribe, turn notifications on. Take a look at past episodes. This one too. Find some that speak to your soul. I promise you, you will find many. And then share them with other people that you know. Share them to your timeline. Share them to your page. I think we really and truly do something different on this show. That's what it was designed to do. And when I see the comments and the again, like today, the chat is on fire. It lets me know that, we are doing the right thing. So I thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you for those that tune in every week. Thank you for those who via chat, tell your truth and your transparency. One thing we got to do is we got to start telling ourselves the truth, and we're going to be in the same place that we've been in. Next week, our topic will be the undersell dilemma, confronting the tendencies that limit Black women's progress. I'm Crystal L. Gunn. I am a Black woman, and I unapologetically every single day own, honor, and execute my amazing. Michele, please close us out.
Yes, you do. This has been an amazing conversation. So honored, Crystal, so honored to be able to share this platform with you. So honored that I get to share space with someone that I know is being obedient to the call that God has put on your life. You are truly a gift Women get better when they're in your space, be it physical or virtual, because you're committed to ensuring that every last one of us understand that our amazing was established at birth. It is truly an honor to be your ride or die in these situations. I don't know where we go from here. I really don't. I'm here for the ride, but I just don't know how it gets any better than getting behind the mic one more time to hear your joy and your love for us and our ability to just be better. I get better. Today I got better. Thank you for the gift of you. My name is Michele Harper. I am a Black woman, and without apology, I will continue to own my amazing.
Thank you, everybody. We will see you next week. Have a good night.